So this year's presentation, like all others, I delved in the last 6 months into the bacterial count of the intestinal tract. You hear an awful lot about that today, but one of the things that we're missing is what does it do and what do you have to put into the intestinal tract? Was there science that could support what should be eaten? And what are the fuels that actually feed healthy bacteria? Hold on, because a lot of this data is as fresh as 3 months ago. You're going to be shocked another way we can prove a plant-based diet is in the human species. So we're going to take a voyage right now into your intestinal tract. We dolled it up a little bit. As you see, there's a lot of different colors. I'm not sure that's how everyone's look, but at the same point, I would hope it is. And as you see, your inside is you. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, quite simply, who you are, who you present yourself as, your persona, is your emotional and physical being. So that's what I'm saying to you, that your inside is literally who you are, because that's what creates your emotional and physical person. Isn't that amazing? And I didn't learn that in school, and I don't know of any doctor ever in the history of medicine that learned that in school. Now, the amazing part of this story, we're going to go right back on a voyage more than 3.5 billion years ago. I didn't say million, I said billion years ago. And the earth was completely covered by water. There was no life as we know it. Can you imagine that? Nothing existed that we can identify today as life. And something quite unique happened in that water. The sun came down, and before you know it, it created a bacteria. So the bacteria was the very first life form on the earth, but it wasn't life as we know it. As a matter of fact, it was what we call anaerobic. Anaerobic means it does not require oxygen. Now, one of the simple ways to put life as we know it, all life as we know it require oxygen. So this is really a great story. So here this lifeless, oxygenless bacteria morphed about 1 billion years later. So now we're talking about 2.5 billion years ago into what we call today, and I take every day as I did this morning, along with 4 others, algae. In this case, it's blue-green algae. It's cyanobacteria is what it's scientifically called. This bacteria was the first to utilize photosynthesis. Now, we all remember that big word from grade school. Photosynthesis is where the sunlight comes down and the photons that actually come from the sun itself, that were protons before they projectiled into the atmosphere of the universe and got to move so rapidly, they turn into light. Actually hit the first life form, which was blue-green algae, producing photosynthesis. Now, we remember the rest of that story because photosynthesis is what creates oxygen, O2. Great story. Now we talk about billions of years later, land came and new biomes. So new life forms came. That's what a biome is. And this is an amazing event that happened. The very first thing that occurred, there were all these continents. We believe about 4 continents that were together. Through time and the spinning of the earth in our universe, they began to separate, a very slow, laborious process. And what popped up was the island and continent of Australia. So the very first land, 1 million years before any other land, was the island and continent of Australia. Now, the algae, which was microscopic, created in the ocean next to it a visible form of algae. Today we may call them things like nori that you put on plant-based sushi. You may find orami, haziki, wakame, dulse. Many of the things I eat and we serve here at Hippocrates Health Institute. But then that invisible algae created grass. So the very first thing that grew on land was grass. So this is why for the last 66 years, we've been very mono-focused on making sure that everyone take these fundamental and foundational life forms into their diet. Now, it's not all we eat, because we're most familiar with organic vegetables and plants and nuts and seeds and grains and beans, and they're perfectly good, but without the fundamentals, you're really missing an awful lot. From that grass came everything from the plants that are in your garden as we look outside, or if you're listening to me as you drive by, to redwood trees. And some of the biomes are aquatic, which was the original grassland, which we're now talking about, that emerged into forest, and then deserts and tundra. So these are the 5 basic life-sustaining environments. Now, what is a microbe? So we started by saying that over 3.5 billion years ago, an oxygen-less bacteria was created. That was the first microbe, and by the way, that gave birth to the very first living vegetable, or living plant, we should say. And as you notice, these are actual films with an electron microscope of microbes in the body. Now, the surprising thing to most of you, when you see somebody really attractive and you say, wow, they're really beautiful, they're really cute, they have 10 times more bacteria than they have cells in their body. So you may think the second time, but they still may be cute after that. So microbes are literally microscopic biology that are all around us. Not only us, but all around us. They live in water, soil, and in the atmosphere that we breathe. The human body is home to billions and billions and billions of these microbes, and also microorganisms. Some microbes make us sick, others are important to maintain health. Now, this is really beautiful. It's a dance between having adequate amounts of healthy microbes and making sure that the immunity is so strong that it prevents an overgrowth of bad bacteria. As a matter of fact, until recent lifestyle diseases, that is the #1 cause of death today, that we've created through eating animals, breathing pollution, wearing polyester, nylon, synthetic clothing, and the list goes on, having bad relationships, hating your job. Most people died in years past from microbes. And one of the greatest findings in history was antibiotics. But boy, have they gone bonkers on that one, and it's become counterproductive rather than productive to human health and survival at this point. What is a microbe? So we always say microbe, bacteria, but it's also a fungi, a protozoa, a virus. There's so many components to this biome of little microscopic creatures that literally are either after you or, by the way, supportive of you. The number of genes in a person's microbiome are 200 times the number of genes in the human genome. Now think about that. We're all excited today, and I am too, because I think one of the greatest things I've seen in my lifetime that came out of modern science and modern medicine was genetics. But think of what I'm telling you. We're just beginning to explore this. This is like we've gone to another planet we've never seen before, and we've been speculating until very, very recently the significance that this microbiome has in your body and our connectivity to the universe around us. But think of this. We're going to have to study 200 times more about the genes that are in your intestinal tract than we do the genes that make up who you are at this point. The microbiome may weigh as much as 5 pounds. Think about that one. Now, here's where we begin a voyage into why we're all sick as dogs. Now, every word I will ever utter, not only have I seen here in a clinical setting at Hippocrates and learned over the last 52 years of my work, working with 287,000 people, but it's also supported, as you see at the bottom of your screen, by current and valid science. Lacking in diversity. A lot of you say, oh, diversity is a good thing, but boy, oh boy, you're lacking in diversity. Western intestinal fauna and flora are up to 30 times less diverse than non-Western intestinal microbiome. Now think about that. So we have 1/3 less healthy, good, strong bacteria than people who live much like they did hundreds or thousands of years ago. Now, of course, we're the sophisticated ones. We're the ones who are sterile, and we're the ones who are clean, and we're the ones that are sick. We're so sick to remind all of you out there listening around the globe that the number 3 killer in the developed world happens to be modern medicine. And by the way, the number 1 killer in great part is caused by modern medicine. It's cancer, number 1, heart attacks, strokes, number 2, and pharmaceutical drugs and medical mistakes, number 3. Now, do you think that just may have something to do with 1/3 of your healthy bacteria not being there? And why aren't the healthy bacteria there? I alluded to it just 5 minutes ago. Antibiotics have saved billions of people's lives because it was killing bad bacteria. But because they've made very little headway in modern medicine with medicines, well, the headway, as you see, they've made is that most of them are suspect of creating disease and even death. That's why every ad globally, you'll hear them actually either utter or in writing tell you all the side effects from taking these drugs that kill the microbiome. Aha. You think maybe eating fast food that is riddled with pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, plastics, fillers, and genetic modified organisms may be killing the healthy bacteria? Well, put that in the back of your mind because we're going to keep going up this step until you see there is a remedy.